Football talk, position by position. Are the Badgers actually better than they were last year at these spots, or did we get worse in some key areas on this football team? Let's talk about it. Plus a little NIL talk if we can get to it. On Wisconsin, let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. Again, giving us a slice of your time. That is the coolest thing ever. It's the most valuable thing any of us have. So thank you so much for that. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. We got that dude, Rajiv, with us today. What's up, man?
How's it going, man? Good to be with you.
Yeah, it's a little more sporadic than it used to be. So it's nice when we can get together and talk.
Absolutely. And listen, when we're talking football, what's not to love? Like, it's the countdown has begun, right? We're already working towards the next football season.
You know what I love about Rajiv, man? Like, basketball is really exciting for like a month, and now he's like, no, let's get happy about football.
Listen, I love basketball, but March is coming. But until March is here, let's talk football.
So listen, what we want to do on this show, I think this is going to be a fun one. We're going to go position by position football, and we're just going to make a prediction. Is that position better this upcoming year than it was last year? I want to start at quarterback. We'll alternate on these. Do you think quarterback's going to be better next year for the Badgers?
I think this is really hard. Like, all these positions are going to be really hard. Quarterback, I'm going to say worse for now because we just don't know. Like, I think Tanner Mordecai brought so much with his legs, his ability to escape the pocket, his experience. Yes, he wasn't as good as we all expect him to be. Yes, he got injured, which obviously hurt things. And then Braelon Allen situation. With Tyler Van Dyke, it's hard to say because I think he's fast. I don't know that he's really going to be able to move like Tanner Mordecai. I think he throws a better ball. I think he fits into the offense better. But the unknown of him and it being such a critical position, it's hard for me to say that we're in a better spot than we were at the beginning of last year. It's tough, though, because on paper, I think Van Dyke's going to be better than Mordecai, but it's just hard for me to really say the position's going to be improved.
So I'm going to give you the option to push, too, on any of these.
I'm going to push, then.
Okay, yeah. I'm going to push as well. I think it's super easy for fans to get excited about a big quarterback coming in, right? Listen, Mordecai really struggled throwing the ball last year at times, like really struggled. Tyler Van Dyke has done that, too, struggle throw the ball. Like, he's in college, still in college for many of the same reasons Mordecai is, right? The NFL isn't a viable option for him. Like, so there's red flags here. He's a different type of player. I think there's a scenario where he could be better, but I'm going to push on this because I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. And by the way, there's a lot of Miami fans that are not sad to see him gone. So there's an element here where with decision-making, we're going to lose some of that athleticism from the ground that Mordecai gave us. I'm going to go push on this as well. If I had to go worse or better, I'd probably say worse as well, but just because there's real red flags with Mordecai in the decision making. And listen, at the end of the day, taking care of the ball, making sound decisions is the ultimate job of a quarterback. And if you don't do that, you're going to lose a bunch of games.
Absolutely. But still, it's good that we got the guy, and we should be set up for a solid year there, but it's hard to say right now. Yeah.
All right, let's start running. Let's go running back. I'm going to go worse. I think for all the hype of the freshman running backs coming in, the two most decorated ones aren't enrolling early. You're not replacing Braelon Allen with Tyree Walker and some freshmen in year one. I think this one, for all the criticism that Braelon Allen sometimes gets, he ran for 1,000 yards and had 5.5 yards per carry last year. The last two games of the season, he ran for over 200 yards, had 4 tutties. You're not replacing him in year one with freshmen.
Completely agree with you on this one. It's Braelon Allen is Braelon Allen. And yeah, he was injury prone. He had some issues here and there, but the guy could run like a tank. And I hope Tyree Walker is going to be great. I hope it's a good compliment, and I hope Malusi can be healthy. And obviously Malusi coming back does kind of make you think, oh, maybe, with Walker, but Walker is not Allen. And it's just that simple. And I agree with you. I hope that in the end, it becomes a position that's stronger because maybe the freshman can play a role. It's deep. Now the room is definitely deeper for sure. But yeah, I'm going to go with you and say that it's not as good, not going to be as good.
Let's go receiver. You start this one on this one.
Oh boy, receiver. I'm going to say better because I think you're bringing a lot of people back that theoretically are going to take a jump and grow and be more pronounced and prominent in the offense. Because Skylar Bell not being there is frankly helpful because of the drop situations. Certainly DK is a guy that you miss, but at the same time, Green kind of showed at the end of the year last year. You're adding a guy like Henry. You've got young guys that can play a little bit more. Vinny Anthony is going to be a guy that's kind of coming on the scene. Will Pauling is still there. So as a whole, I'm going to say the unit is better because the people that are not going to be there, while DK is a loss, Bell isn't. And I think that the other guys have gotten a little better.
So I actually feel like this is one of the spots I'm most certain about that's going to be better. I feel like it's a slam dunk in my opinion. Some of the guys you lost, really good players, great kids, especially in the case of like DK. They were recruited to a different offense, and it almost feels like you've removed some bad fits in some ways. Not bad fits from a locker room culture standpoint, but just from what this offense wants to do. Pauling in year 2 is going to be even more comfortable. Bryson Green is going to be back. CJ Williams is going to have a year under his belt. Tretch is going to be a big part of this offense. You're bringing in Tyrell Henry. I think Quincy Burrows could have a role here. Vinny Anthony. I just think the young guys are poised to take a step up. I think Tretch could be kind of this could be a bit of a really fun season for Tretch Kahuna. Pauling in year 2. I think this room is potentially night and day better. I know last year we got lost in the hoopla of the receiver room. I know we did. I know someone's getting in the YouTube comments like, you said this last year, right? And I know.
That is literally why my excitement level is not where yours is, because I just don't like, yes, I want to believe that everything you just said is going to happen, but I'm like, we just saw this game and it was not what we expected.
No, I hear you. I will say this, like you see Tretch on the field against LSU, right? And LSU defenders not be able to tackle him in space. You see the speed from him in the Brady Collins stuff. I can tell you from talking to people in the program, Quincy Burrows is maybe the most NFL measurable guy they have. And now those young guys have another year. We've already seen what Pauling can do. I think Pauling in year 2 could be a tick better now that he's more familiar with it. I feel really good about this one. I totally get the hype was crazy last year. It didn't deliver. Let's slow it down a little bit. I think this room is absolutely better than last year. So I feel really good about it.
I'm glad you do, man. I'm glad you do. And I really hope that it kind of turns out that way. And listen, it should. I mean, listen, on paper, it should. You're absolutely right. Like there's nothing, when you look at this room and you look at the experience and you look at the youth, like it's fantastic. So if Tyler Van Dyke is the guy that can get him the ball and if they can catch it, then yeah, I think we should be in good shape.
Listen, underrated aspect of this, right? Switching out receiver coaches too. We're not really even sure what that type of impact is. Like we don't know the type of coach Mike Brown is necessarily or Guyton will be. But that's something to track when we're talking. Is the receiver room going to be better? There is coaching turnover there for better or worse. The one thing I want to point out though, and I think this is an interesting narrative with Badger fans, and I get why it's happening. People say, well, last year was this, so now we need to temper expectations. And what I would argue is last year really has nothing to do with this year. You know, in the sense of, hey, we got overhyped last year, so now we need to be underhyped in a way. Last year, it's almost like saying, hey, Mordecai didn't deliver. That means I'm not going to be as excited for Tyler Van Dyke. And when there's two completely separate quarterbacks, right? One really has nothing to do with the other. Just like I don't think this receiver room, I don't think you should look at it differently because you were let down by last year's receiver room.
Yeah, and to your point also, like when you think about like things that are different from last year, it's also even the players that were there, it's also 2 years with Brady Collins, 2 years with Luke Fickell, 2 years in the system. Yes, you have a new receivers coach, but in general, the entire culture's grown now another year. And so there's it's like there's one more year level of experience that with the system and with the entire culture of the team. So there's that too. Like you should see gains in that already just because he's in his second year coaching.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Tight ends, I'll take this one to start. I have up on tight ends. I think Magana is going to be an impact transfer. You get Tucker Ashcraft, who played last year. He's going to be a year better. I thought most years he's a guy who should have redshirted, but they needed the body. He's a year better. And quite frankly, I think Steck can play some of what Ashcraft did last year. So I think you're deeper, and you added a kind of an impact talented transfer. I have tight ends better than last year.
Yeah, I totally agree there. I mean, I think that it'll be interesting to see how much Steck, if he can get in there, what he does, but he does bring instant depth, and McGowan brings experience, and you've got, your year of Ashcraft. Ashcraft, I think, had a little bit less than what he wanted. Obviously, there were some drop issues, and he was young. You're right, probably too young to play, but you got to think that now that room is just set up. It's got experience that can play now and for the future.
We're going to take a quick break there, come back. Offensive line, defensive line. I want to ping Rajiv on an Orlando Tucker question that someone brought up in our YouTube chat. But first, today's show brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Rajiv's out in Vegas. Rajiv, Wisconsin, Indiana, Wisconsin -3. What do you think?
Take the Badgers. I'm feeling really good about this game. Really good about it.
Okay, the road thing doesn't scare you at all in this one.
It doesn't, because I feel like it's time for this team to take a step and get headed towards March, and this is that step.
Okay. So over at FanDuel.com/LockedOn, take that Badgers -3. Rajiv made it his lock of the week. By the way, this is not official advice. Please do everything responsibly. I am not putting Rajiv on that spot, but if you do want to have fun, make every moment more, go over to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. New customers bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed, win or lose. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. All your betting action. By the way, I'm inclined to take the Badgers, but I'm probably just going to go money line. Like, I just don't like stressing at the end in case Indiana hits like that stupid 3-pointer. Like,
it always seems to go in. Yeah.
Just give me the money line, but I probably will take money line Badgers tomorrow. Go over to FanDuel, all the action, all the sports, futures, parlays, teasers, spreads. It's all over there. FanDuel.com/LockedOn, the official sports book of the Locked On Network, NBA, and the NFL Network. Rasheed, really quickly, because obviously the game coming up tomorrow, I'll do a reaction show. You feeling good about it?
I am feeling good about this. I just kind of think that, like, we've had this kind of down February, right? There's been a lot of down. There's been a few ups, but this team has got to take a step towards March. I feel like we're getting a little bit better, getting some things kind of settled defensively a little bit. And I just think we're due for one of those games like we had earlier in the year. We just dominate a team. I know it's hard to do on the road. We did it at Michigan State. We did it elsewhere. So yeah, Indiana's kind of faltering. They just don't have the athletes that can compete, in my opinion. And, Nebraska went in there and just took care of them. And I'm not saying we're going to do the exact same thing, but I do feel confident we're going to get that win.
I love it, man. I also want to play my Believe with Rajiv. We haven't heard that in a minute either. All right, let's get into this. Let's get into offensive line. I started off with tight ends. I'll kick offensive line over to you. Better, worse, or push?
To me, it's going to be a push because, look, I think Bortolini, for all the much maligned issues we talked about with the snaps, he was still a really good center. He was a really good blocker. Wherever he would have been on the interior of the line, he was the guy. And I think that when you lose a guy like that, you are going to see a dip. Forget the snaps for a minute. Just think about the blocking schemes and what he did up front. Renfrow, I'm really, really excited about, right? But I do think that you just don't exactly kind of know what that's going to be and how that's going to fit. So for me, I'm just calling it square.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. If you could crystal ball this and say, hey, Renfrow is going to be healthy the entire year, I would say up. I would say step up, but you just can't with him, right? Like, he's missed basically the last 2-3 years now. Like, you just can't count on it. And let's say Renfrow can't go, which honestly, you should probably be more surprised if he stays healthy the entire year. And obviously, I'm rooting for him, but just look at the track record. Right. Who's your starting center if Renfrow can't go?
Well, it's probably Huber, but yeah.
Huber, I'm telling you, Huber's the swing man. Like, Huber should be the sixth man on an offensive line, not the starting center. And then who are your guards? Like, and who are their backups? Like, you start to look at that interior offensive line if Renfrow can't go, and there are real depth questions.
Yeah, you look at Benchawal, Barrett Nelson on the outside. Then you got to look at the young guys, right? Then maybe you do have a guy like Haywood at tackle and Cubberly, and you've got young guys that can potentially slot in there. But yeah, I mean, Duran, maybe we see a Duran this year on the line. So you do have some depth. I think, look, the freshman, I'm excited about the freshman. I think you know how I feel about Kevin Haywood. I think that we're going to have good depth, but the center is such a critical position, man. Like, it really sets the tone for the line. And as much as we talked about Bortolini last year, no one really talked about his blocking. He was great, and he really was skilled, and he really ran that line well. So you really can't discount how much we're going to miss that guy.
Yep, right there with you. I have it as push as well. Defensive line, I'm going to go up. I think it's better. I think it's slightly better, though. I mean, if there were increments to this, my increment would be just a little above push. I think the young guys are going to play, and I think they're going to give you juice and some burst that hasn't been there. James Thompson Jr. is back. I think it's going to be helpful. I think Jamel Howard's going to find a role. I've heard good things there. So I think the young guys are going to play. I think that's going to help a lot. It's still a bit of a problem. I do want to caution. I know people are excited. You got Elijah Hills. Elijah Hills was less productive at a lower level than Darian Varner was, right? And we were very excited about Darian Varner. Darian Varner didn't do anything. I I hope he plays well. He was not very productive at his level. But I do think it's going to be a little better, mainly driven by the younger players.
I want to say that. I'm going to say to push right now, just because I'm really just kind of, we're low on the defensive line. We really don't know what to expect. Look, yeah, you've got people coming back. Thompson Jr. really obviously is a guy that looks good. The interior is still a question mark. Is Jamel Howard going to play? Is it going to be Neal? The other side, Barton. Like there's too many kind of question marks that I'm just going to say it's a push. I feel like I hope it's a lot better. I expect it to be better, but I'm just not going to say right now that I'm confident it will be. It might just still kind of be that part of the defense that you're just like, ooh, I don't know how it's going to work. And then really rely on the people behind them to get the job done. So I'm going to say push.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair perspective as well. I'm going to kick linebackers over to you in what is probably the easiest of this.
You said wide receivers is what you were most confident. Forget that. This is the one. To me, this is about as much high as you can get going from one year to the next. I mean, you talk about guys like Thomas and Curtis and Lowry and Pius. The list goes on. And you take a position group that got just swallowed up by blocks, play after play, couldn't get to the outside, couldn't get a good pursuit, couldn't make tackles when you needed to. And there were some plays that happened. Yes, the guys had some good moments and there was some good play, but for the most part, this was a unit that suffered. And now it goes from a unit that I think suffered to a unit that will excel and actually be potentially the strength of this defense, of course, in addition to Hunter Wohler.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, obviously, right there with you. Now I will say there's a scenario here where there's a scenario here where if the defensive line isn't very good, all of our gains in the linebacker core aren't going to fully show, right? They're because they will get swallowed up by offensive linemen. If our defensive linemen get pushed off the ball, if our defensive linemen can't eat a double team, it doesn't matter how athletic Tackett, Curtis, or it just doesn't, right? Because a Big Ten offensive lineman is going to bully them. They're going to get 4 yards, and it's going to put our defense in a tough spot. But no matter what, these linebackers, you know what you're not going to see this year from the linebackers? You're not going to see a quarterback in open field dusting our linebackers.
And that is my point. That's exactly right. So I was going to say, like, forget the defensive line. You're right about the defensive line, but in space, one-on-one, they're going to win their battles where Muma and Jordan, those guys, and Peterson didn't win them last year. And that's the difference. So yeah, you're right. They might not be as good as we want them to be because of the D-line, but they're going to be great in space. And when they're one-on-one, they're winning it. They're winning it.
Yeah, I can't wait for this group. And the competition, right? You talk about the young guys coming in early on before this influx of transfer guys. We're like, now, like Lafayette's going to play, right? And now I'm like, geez, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? I thought Heiberger would. I think he's still going to play special teams for sure, but now it's like, I don't know, man. There's so many dudes here. But again,
the fact that you can have Lafayette and Heiberger in the wings and waiting for the next year, red shirt, whatever, to get stronger, work with Brady Collins, like, man, it's just the future of that position. I know we're not really talking about the future right now, but that's really nicely set up, and you got young guys and there's so much talent. And, this is clearly a focus for Fickell and Tressel. Kudos to them, because you needed it. You got it. They're building this defense around that linebacking core, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, 100% agree. Let's go cornerback. I'll start with this one. I think it's up. I think cornerback is better than it was last year. You get Rico back. He's going to continue progressing. He's done that his entire career. But really, it's a lot of young guys on this roster, right? It's the Amari Snowdens, who we still don't fully know, but he's got a year under his belt. What is a Jace Arnold going to do? You look at a guy like Laguna, what's he going to do? I think one of the young freshmen, whether it's Agard or Lucas, is going to play. Those guys are coming in tremendously talented as physical kids. So I think, to me, this is a pretty easy one. I don't see how it would get worse.
Exactly. The one player you're missing was a player that we obviously struggled to see a little bit last year, had some rough times in Smith. So I think, yeah, you get, if Rico was leaving, it'd be a whole different situation. With Rico coming back, he's the guy. He's a shutdown corner. He's going to be the best cornerback in the Big Ten, one of the best cornerbacks in college football. And then you add that youth. And yeah, I still think Snowden is going to be a cornerback, and hopefully a really, really great sized one too. It's going to be good to see. But yeah, you got riches at that position now. You've got a solid room, and isn't that becoming a theme now? You got solid rooms kind of all over the team. It's nice to see that.
Safety. Go safety.
Yeah, I'm gonna say better, just because Wohler's back. I mean, if Wohler wasn't here, it'd be a different situation. And I think that, like, Wooler is a guy that is just going to raise the level of everyone around him. He's a year older. He's got NFL all written all over him. He's going to go to the league. He's going to be great. And then while, there's some question marks with Latu here and there, but I think Austin Brown's going to take a step up. I think Zachman's going to take a step up. And again, you got youth, you got maybe Braden Moore. What's he going to do? Is he going to fit in there? So yeah, I think better because our guy's here. He's the best defender on the team.
Yeah, I'm just gonna call it a push for that reason though. Like I don't know what more you're gonna get out of Wooler, right? Like, and quite frankly, I think I love the physical frame that Austin Brown has. Like some of those plays, I remember back to the Ohio State game. Like there were not a lot of guys in their secondary coming up making one-on-one tackles in space against Ohio State. Austin Brown did that. Like I like Braden Moore, but they're still young. We don't really know, and I think that the level is already really high, and I don't know if it's going to get higher than really high. So I'm going to
I think it's just adding. It's just basically you're returning all your production. So it's like theoretically those guys take steps up. That's really the only reason I would call it a better.
That's fair. How about the coaching staff?
Boy.
I'm going to go push. Just really I want it because honestly, as much as I want it, sometimes we're fans, right? We have quick takes. We think of things really quickly. Sometimes we talk without speaking, or I know I do. Again, I say this all the time. Rajiv is a higher life form than I am. He probably doesn't, but we have all these takes on all these things, but really we don't know. We don't really know how good of a coach Kenny Guyton is, or any of these guys, quite frankly. So I'm going to say push. Wait to see.
Yeah, it's to me. I know it's a lazy take, but it's like push to slightly worse. I feel like it's just kind of like it's on the lower end of the push zone, if you will, just because I think Colin Hitchler is still a loss. Like I think that he was a really key cog in the coaching staff and obviously the recruiting as well. But just overall, you just don't know. And there's just Scruggs. I think people were excited about like what he was building. And yes, he didn't really have the players, but you just don't know. So because you lost some people that, especially Hitchler, I think if Hitchler hadn't left, I would probably be a square push, maybe even a little better. But that loss, I think, will hurt us.
Yeah, so we kind of went through all the positions, and really quick before we take a break, talk a little NIL. Does it make you think next year's team is going to be better or worse, breaking it down like that?
I definitely think it's going to be better because just honestly, the one thing that we consistently talked about last year, at least that I did, was the lack of a solid rush defense. And I think the linebacking core instantly makes that better. When you return an offensive line, you don't have Braelon Allen, but you return so much production at receiver and with the line and Malusi. Yes, the quarterback is going to be the X factor. It's all going to come down to whether Van Dyke can be the guy or not. But if you look at everything else, they're all, to most of them, as we said, are really going in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree. I think next year's team is better. And again, we've talked as a fly lens. I'm like, caller, get out of here. What is with this nonsense? My window's open right now, but I don't think flies should be alive in Connecticut. I don't know.
In the winter, too.
What is happening? I will say this. Yeah, I think next year's team is better. I really do. One of the things that struck me as we're going through it, there were two obvious home run spots for us, or at least for me. I was like, I think receivers definitely going to be better. I think linebackers definitely going to be better. And there was no spot where I was like, this is a disaster spot compared to last year. Even running back, I think we're fine. I don't think it's a disaster. So in that context, I think we're better. I 100% agree with you. All right, we're going to take a quick break for our friends of the show over at Gametime. All the tickets you need to all the events that you want to find over at Gametime. Download the Gametime app today. Use code LOCKEDON for $20 off. I know at some point JB is going to take me to my first concert. He's told me he's going to. We're going to use the Gametime app when we do that to go to that first concert in my life, whatever it is. We'll get the best tickets at the best deals. We'll get pictures of our seats before we sit down. Plus, if you want to get tickets to any type of March Madness events coming up, Gametime is the place to do it. Big Ten tournament, go to Gametime. Again, lowest price guarantee, flash sales. Don't worry about logistics. It's easy, simple, cheap. You can't beat any of that. Go over to Gametime, snag the tickets without the stress. Download the Gametime app, create the account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. Gametime app, LOCKEDONCollege. All right, Rajiv, let's talk a little NIL. I know before the show, I apologize for this because I didn't get a chance to watch your guys' show. I know you guys talked about it. Obviously, a ton of stuff has happened recently. A ton more stuff is going to happen. None of this is even final. Like, I think that's important to note. Like, there's an injunction, which means more things to follow. The one thing I would say, though, and I talked about this a while ago after one of the NIL shows we did with talking about the collective, I said this is a transition period. Like, we were at something different, right? We're in the middle of a turbulent period and we're heading somewhere else. I think all of this is just this constant flux and change. And I think whatever we have right now, this is not the final product.
100%. And it can't be because it's a mess. It's got to be there. And you're right. It's really, the question is, what is that final product? And that's where it's fun to talk about it, because there's so many different directions that it can go. And yeah, look, I think that I'm a big fan of NIL. I love that the players are able to make money off their name, image, and likeness. They deserve that. They make a ton of money for the universities. And the judge said as much, right? He's like, the NCAA makes a ton of money here, so you've got to let the kids have the same anti-competitive. You can't have anti-competitive laws that hurt their ability to make money. But I think that what the key point is, you said we're in the middle. We have to get to that next point. So steps have to be taken to push us past this. Because right now you can't field the roster technically. I mean, every given year you're recruiting your entire team basically, right? And it's only going to get worse when you basically open the floodgates to collectives and coaches, basically going out and selling their program to existing players on other teams. Like, you can basically collude. That's in essence what they're basically saying. So I think we're pushing towards an area where contracts are going to have to be employed, because, you got to have a mutual beneficial situation for the player and the school to say, all right, you want this much money, you're signing a 2-year deal, a 1-year deal, a 3-year deal, whatever the case is, maybe a 4 in some cases, because you've got to have that. Now, is it going to be easy? Is that going to be an instant fix? No, but we're obviously moving towards a model of basically professional college sports, right? That's in essence what this is. The amateur sort of thing is going away. They're getting paid. There's a lot of money involved. So as long as the system corrects itself and you move in that direction, which I'm confident the NCAA or the presidents or whoever does it will make that happen, because money's on the table and it will matter. But it's got to happen soon. They do need to take steps, because the current system is very messy, and it's going to kind of not dumb down the product. It's going to lessen the product a little bit because it's so convoluted. If steps are taken to move in the right direction, whatever that final thing may be, and that's debatable, then we'll be in a place where it's going to be a great sport again. Not that it's not now, but stuff has to happen.
What's interesting to me is like this idea, and I see this with a lot of fans, that this will be the end of college football, this apocalyptic take, like, this. And then you look at the ratings last year. Last year was the most successful college football season basically ever, the national title game. But we're in the middle of this chaos now, like the transfer portal. You can and fans are like, I don't really like it. More people watched last year than any other year in the last 10. Like, I guess my point is, I think a lot of this is fear mongering at a higher level. And I honestly, I don't think a lot of fans really care as much as I think people. I'm painting with a very broad brush here. And obviously there are people who are traditionalists, and this is bad, and they don't like it. I don't think it impacts the overall product as much as people maybe think it does. And in terms of the impact to Wisconsin, I think this is a really important point I want to hit on too. Like, Wisconsin is more of a have than a have not in college sports. And fans are very worried about, can Wisconsin compete? Absolutely, we can compete. By the way, resource deficiencies and resource inequality is nothing new in college sports. This has been around in some way, shape, or form for the last 30, 40 years. Weight rooms, coaches' salaries. By the way, payouts from boosters under the table. Wisconsin has
always been there. Yep.
Right? Despite not being one of the blue bloods. This doesn't change that. Wisconsin is still much more of a have than a have not in this ecosystem. So I'm curious on your take on that, but I'm not stressed about Wisconsin's place in this at all. They're in the Big Ten, and they're one of the best programs in the Big Ten.
Absolutely. The Big Ten is the place to be. I mean, as you can see, there's talk now of when Notre Dame and Florida State and all these different potential additions. Are we going to 20? So yeah, we're definitely we're in a good situation. And look, so you have and the NFL, right? 32 teams. What college is going to, which I've said a couple of times, I said yesterday on the show, it's almost like a farm league in a sense, right? It's going to be probably 60 bona fide programs, right, that can actually do this, whether it's 2 conferences of 24 and then maybe a smaller conference or whatever it is. The Big Ten and the SEC are going to be the NFC and the AFC in a sense. And you're going to get the best players coming to this school, just like obviously the best players go to the NFL. And so you're going to have some more funneling into that, and it'll be harder to make that happen. And there'll be power group of 5 and other conferences, but the product on the field theoretically is going to improve because you're going to have better players in these conferences. And we're in one of those situations. Are we in a good a situation as the Ohio States and Michigans of the world? No, but we never have been. So we're going to have to take steps to get there. And ultimately, if they're putting on the jersey, the Wisconsin shirt, I'm in. Like, I'm gonna watch them. I'm gonna root for them. Like, everyone listening to this show right now is a Badger fan or close to Big Ten football. So like, it's gonna happen. It's only gonna get, the product should improve. Now, that being said, there are a lot of people that feel differently. There's a lot of people in our Discord. I had a great discussion with like Ryan Eilers and a couple other people, Badger Bournemouth fan the other night. Really good talks about like, like college football is traditional and the pageantry and all those things. And I think that the colleges, the NCAA, whatever, whoever's doing it, they have to be very intentional and have to make smart decisions about this, because that is important. That is part of the brand, right? You do have to maintain some of that stuff, but you can do that while also paying the players, making it better, because ultimately whether they have to be enrolled, I think they will have to still be enrolled at school. You still are going to have that identity, just like we all have identities with our NFL teams. We all have identities with our college teams, and maybe it's the NFL and the semi-pro, whatever you want to call it, it's still going to be the Badgers. And I think that's ultimately what I want to see. But they have to be smart about it. And I think that the powers that will, the Big Ten, the SEC, the presidents, whoever actually comes together and solves all these messes, they will do it the right way. And the product will end up being improved on the field. Totally understand other people's opinions, but I think in the end, the product is good. People are still going to watch. It's still going to be fun.
It's still going to be college football. Like, at the end of the day, you're still going to have Camp Randall. You're still going to have Jump Around. You're still going to have the Big House and the Horseshoe, and you're still going to beat Minnesota every year and get the axe. Like, it's still college football. Like, I'd say this too. It was an antiquated system, and it was an antiquated system that stuck around for far longer than it should have, because the NCAA refused to budge on anything. The NCAA could have solved this 20 years ago if they wanted to, by giving the players something, and everyone would have signed on because they were getting nothing. Instead, they refused to budge it, which is where we're at now. I would say this, and I think your point is correct, the powers that be, specifically the conferences, need to take the lead here, because the NCAA is committed to continuing to fight this. They're asking Congress to get involved. Look, this is not a political show. It's never been, but if you left, right, in the middle, wherever you are, we all see the government not exactly able to solve a lot of problems going on right now. Like, does anybody really want the government stepping into college football? No, they can't get out of their own way. They're not going to solve the issues of college football. It's going to be the Big Ten, the SEC, the conference leaders, the conference commissioners, 100%, and power, and somebody representing the players, right? It's going to take all that coming together to figure out the right solution, and the quicker we can get there, the better, right? Which means we need to give up. The NCAA needs to give up on this old antiquated solution that wasn't working and focus on what's coming next, which I think is what you talked about. In terms of it,
we're watching an amateur sport become a pro sport, and it's just a process that it's going to get there. But you're right; it's going to be the leagues. The NFL is like, okay, that's the Big Ten, the SEC. That's going to be the powers, and then you've got the players, and there's a lot of money involved. College football's been big money for years. It's just now going to where, frankly, it should have been going a long time, which is the players have to get involved in this. Yes, they've had a great education. They've got the free stuff. College players have gotten a lot, but they've got nothing compared to what the schools have gotten and the money that has been made.
And let me point this out too. We kind of hit on it. When this first happened, this injunction first came out that said, the schools can now reach, coaches can reach all this. My first thought was like, that's what most schools are already doing. Like this, it's a big headline, and Wisconsin's not one of those schools, by the way. Wisconsin does it a certain way, and it's actually pretty cool. Like, if you can be very proud of the way Wisconsin tries to approach things. Most schools, many schools, I know this for a fact. I've been told this. Like, most schools, the really competitive ones, you look at the SEC, you look at places like Texas A&M. Like, they're not playing by those rules anyway. This doesn't change a lot on the national landscape. It really doesn't. There's already collusion. We saw Iowa reaching out to Alabama's starting tackle, the kid who went from Iowa to Alabama during the season, right? He talked about it. Like, this is already happening at a pretty large scale. So to me, let's shine the light in all the crevices, right? Let's just open it up, because this is already happening. And let's figure out a solution going forward that is not all hidden backroom deals and, like sleazy negotiations going on behind the scenes. Let's get it out in the open and let's make it legitimate.
Totally. And at the same time, I definitely don't want to diminish the opinions of the other side, because I get that people have that, like that, that sort of affinity to what college football has always been. And there's a lot of people that definitely are like, look, they've already been getting enough, like, or whatever your opinion is. I totally respect it. And I do think there's a happy medium, though. I do think that there's going to be something that we're all going to be proud of and enjoy. And like we said, the product is a product getting better. There's a lot of people that love the NFL that don't like college because they don't like the product. They don't feel like there's the the quality is good because or it's maybe like you only see the best people at the best universities. But obviously it's spread out. Now it's going to be concentrated to a larger group, but that we're a part of that group. And I feel like that's going to be fun for us. And it's going to be fun for people that can really get behind 2 super conferences, which is what we're heading towards. And there's a lot of cool things that come with that. The playoff is expanding. There's a lot of exciting things happening there. College football is growing. It's changing, but it's still going to be college football. And to me, that's ultimately the bottom line.
Yeah, it's definitely chaotic. And this was not handled at the best way. And you're totally right. Like, people can again, like this show has always been about, this community's always been about all opinions and thoughts are welcome. You
hit a great point earlier, and I just want to reiterate that. I loved it. What you said, like the NCAA not failing to act over the years is what really led to this. I hadn't really thought about it in that perspective, and I love that just because it's so right. Like the NCAA is holding on as hard as they can to this, but they could have solved this and they didn't. So now the only reason it is chaotic is because of the NCAA. The NCAA is seemingly constantly the culprit in all this mess, right? Like they've done this to themselves and they've done this to us because now we have to live through this in this transition period when the NCAA has really been sort of like the villain in all this. And in my opinion, for the longest time, because they continue to have these antiquated things they don't want to change. And it's led to this. So that was a really good point that you brought up.
They're trying to patch a leaky dam, right? With gum and all this stuff. And it just keeps bringing new leaks. And it doesn't work anymore. You can't make that type of money and then not, give some more of it to the athletes. It just doesn't work anymore. And again, they could have 20 years ago said, hey, we're going to do a revenue sharing thing. The players would have loved it because they weren't getting anything. They could have done this like 20-year revenue sharing thing and none of this would have ever came up. But they didn't. And that's why we are where we are. Yeah, this has gone long. I feel like we could do an entire show on this.
I mean, yeah, it's a great discussion. It really is.
I just want to go back and talk one more thing on this. I'm telling you, because I heard, listening to, I'm trying to remember where I heard this. Recently, I heard a discussion about how Wisconsin's not going to be able to compete again. And I just want to reiterate the mechanisms of this shift around, Rasheed, like NIL or collectives, before it was boosters, before it was this, before that was facilities or coaching pay. Like, this is how college football has always been to some degree. Right, it really has been. Wisconsin has never had the most. You talked about the majority of talent's going to be collected in a few spots. That's really, again, it's going to be more than like that. But that's really, again, how college football has always been. Right, like how many different teams have won national titles? The more we change this, the more it still stays the same. The Blue Bloods are still going to get the talent. They're still going to have the best of everything, and Wisconsin is still going to be right in that very next tier, which is still an incredibly awesome place to be.
It's just memorializing it. That's what it's doing. You're just memorializing what has happened under the table for many years. And yes, it's certainly more above board. There's certainly more money involved now for the players, which is good in my opinion. So yeah, you're just kind of laying a more above ground sort of foundation, if you will. You're just exposing what's been out there and you're making it easier for the players to make money and then creating a system that will last much longer into the future. That's not going to be so under the table and violations and you can't be playing in bowl games and you have to strip of them titles and all this nonsense. Like that's just, that was over. People were over that stuff. Like those stupid NCAA violations that teams would get, those times are going to be done. And that's really great.
Yeah. Agreed. All right. He is Rajiv. Obviously, Rajiv, Justin have the Great Bucket Report. Again, we ran a little long today, but we could talk about this for hours. We probably will. I'm sure we'll revisit this again, actually. On Wisconsin, big game tomorrow against Indiana. Obviously, we'll do a reaction to that. Rajiv is more than welcome if you can make it. Hopefully, the Badgers get a win. I'm putting money down because Rajiv told me to.
79-68. 79-68 Badgers. There you go.
Let's do it. That's a good one. I'll take that. On Wisconsin, we'll talk later.